Bette Midler is an extraordinary entertainer.
Real legendary is Bette Midler. Funny, brilliant, clever, a goddess.
What's more fun than getting out and shaking your tail feathers? Nothing.
A riotous blend of showgirl,
Wonderful singing, wonderful backing group.
show off,
She's outrageous, she's vivacious, she's a triple threat.
and razor-sharp wit.
I was really shocked.
She's a very brave performer.
She can sing the blues one minute
Everything she does comes from her heart and her soul.
and turn the air blue the next.
My boyfriend Ernie put one hand upon the radio and the other hand upon his appendage.
She's not afraid of saying outrageous things.
I said to him, Ernie, darling, he is only trying to heal the sick, he is not trying to raise the dead.
A little campy, a little racy, but a heart of gold.
Bette's sassy and brassy humour has been shocking us for decades.
Oh, I don't ever want to become a family entertainer. I think family entertainers are boring.
This pint-sized powerhouse is genuine show business royalty.
Voice, personality. That is a special human.
Nobody sounded like her, nobody ever looked like her. She was one of a kind. She still is.
You want to bet? You gotta bet. The divine Bette Midler.
Bette Midler is a legendary funny lady. Bold, brash and brazen, the divine Miss M's outrageous brand of raucous humour, combined with her powerhouse vocal performances, have had us under her spell for over half a century.
I mean, underneath all this drag, I'm really just a librarian, you know that?
What struck me was how small she is. She's tiny. She's got that smile where her eyes disappear because her cheeks go up. You know that? And you just look at her and think, oh my God.
She loves the curious mind. She loves the funny person. She loves the intellectual wit. She's really an interesting bunch of women.
There is nobody else that could do what Bette does. I think people think they are a Bette Midler type. I like to think of myself that way, but I'll never be able to do what Bette does. That's it, there's one.
Bette's story began in 1945 in the suitably exotic location of Honolulu, Hawaii.
Her father was a Navy contractor, so they moved from New Jersey to Hawaii. There was just a little bit of a boom for Navy families, and so she grew up there.
Growing up in Hawaii, it was beautiful, but it was also incredibly trashy. And I think Bette became fascinated by the sort of vulgarity and the sort of lurid quality of Hawaii.
Hawaii is an unlikely place for a showbiz legend to come from, but it also produced President Obama, so surprising people have come from there, and clearly there's a great talent pool in the island.
Imagine her in Hawaii. You can't put her into that context, really. To me, she's so New York, and I can't imagine her surfing.
White and Jewish, the Midlers were always outsiders on the islands.
My family was the only white family in our whole community, and it was pretty rough. It was very, very rough. That's why I don't care for bigotry of any kind, because I've had the brunt of it, and I think it's really, it's cruel and unfair.
Bette was beloved and adored by her mother Ruth, but for all intents and purposes, completely misunderstood by her father.
What about your dad, though? I mean, he's proud of you, isn't he?
I've never been able to figure him out. You know, you go through your whole life with these people, and you don't really ever get to know them. You're still a stranger till the day you die, and that's the one question that you probably carry with you to your grave. What did he mean by that? You know?
Her father was quite a distant, quite an authoritarian figure who didn't have any interest in show business at all. He used to say show business is a waste of time, whereas her mother loved 30s and 40s movies and named all her daughters, you know, after great movie stars. And of course, Bette is named after Bette Davis.
Her mother's love of show business rubbed off on the teenage Bet, who dreamt of being a star, taking any work she could to make those dreams come true.
When you were in Hawaii, you worked in a canning factory, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Pineapple canning factory.
Pineapple cannery, yeah.
What did you do?
I was the chief chunker.
In 1965, aged just 19, Bet swapped pineapple for the Big Apple when she followed her heart and tried to get a break on Broadway.
She knew that if she was going to make it, and that's all she ever wanted was to be a star, she knew she had to get to New York.
She lived in a hotel, a down and dirty, dingy hotel room on Broadway. And she had this theory, if I can't be on Broadway, I'll live on it.
When I went to New York, I actually did study with Lee Strasberg. I studied with him. Well, I can't call it studying because I didn't have a clue what he was saying. I listened real hard, but I thought, my God, he speaks a different language, doesn't he?
After a year of endless auditions, the single-minded Miss Midler landed a part in what would become one of Broadway's longest-running musicals.
So Bet did finally get into Fiddler on the Roof on Broadway, although, you know, first she was told you're too Jewish for the part, then she was told you're not Jewish enough. So she started off in the ensemble, and then she got the part of Title, the eldest sister.
Bet's gutsy and spirited vocal delivery made hers one of the show's standout performances.
Matchmaker, matchmaker,
But after 3 long years in Fiddler, Bet decided to turn her back on the Great White Way and totally reinvent herself.
Bet could have had a very successful career on Broadway. However, in the early 70s, there was a thriving counterculture scene. There was a very exciting gay scene going on, so she decided to enter the cabaret circuit.
There's something happening here, but what it is ain't exactly clear.
There was a big party going on, and I wanted to be part of that party. It was a real hotbed of all sorts of things. It was all happening on that bus. So I got off my bus, and I moved over to the other bus.
Stop, children, what's that sound? Everybody look what's going down.
It was very brave, and at a time when the cabaret scene in New York was shifting, and she played every club.
Bet took her brand of feisty cabaret to tiny venues all over the bohemian districts of Greenwich Village and the Lower East Side, delighting audiences with her no-holds-barred performances.
She was just wild and physically unlike anybody else I had seen before, because usually women singers came in gowns and had their hair coiffed. She was in a bustier and pedal pushers and stiletto heels and with that wild red curly hair and odd looking and uncensored sort of. She was fantastic.
But it was one particular string of gigs that would get the whole town talking about both Bet and her unassuming young musical director.
He wasn't really a singer. He was a very clever pianist who accompanied people.
Having left the bright lights of Broadway behind her, Bette Midler launched herself onto Manhattan's thriving cabaret scene, and in 1970 landed a residency at a most unlikely location.
So she was doing her shows. She was playing all over town, every club, downstairs at the upstairs. She was playing the Baths on Saturday night, and you really couldn't get into that place.
Bette's big break came when she was approached by the owner of a basement bathhouse and offered the slot of resident Saturday night entertainer. But the cabaret and the buffet weren't the only things on the menu.
The Connell Bathhouse was a gay bathhouse where men would go to be with other men. They walked around only wrapped in a white towel. There was a pool in the middle of it, a small stage, and that's where she would perform.
After coming off an avant-garde Broadway show, you've seen everything, but walking into these secret, it was like a secret society almost. You're going into an area that women don't, they're not very, and there might have been 10 women in the room, including her.
She is the first great superstar at the Continental Baths. So what more can you say? Here she is, Bette Midler!
As seen in this rare footage, the material was niche, but it was delivered with panache and supreme self-confidence.
Stephen, you know, the owner of this dump, is making a concerted effort to find people who can fill my shoes or my blouses.
There were 1,500 people in a room the size of where we're sitting. Yeah. And they all had towels around their waists and nothing else.
Sort of steam bath.
It was steamy. There was a lot of business going on in the back that I tried valiantly to ignore.
Tinkling the ivories alongside Bet at the baths was a young man with a phenomenal music career ahead of him.
Her accompanist happened to be an unknown musician called Barry Manilow.
Barry Manilow's energetic musical arrangements perfectly complemented Bet's enthusiastic vocal interpretations.
That's all he was then. He wasn't really a singer. He was a very clever pianist who accompanied people, and he certainly accompanied Bet. They became very good friends at the baths.
In between the songs, Bet's comic quips were expertly aimed at the largely gay male audience.
I know this pattern is very short here. Nothing else is, but anyway, and I know who is here and who is not here. And if I come back and there are any empty seats, your mother is going to hear from me.
And even though her reputation was spreading beyond the baths and attracting a wider clientele to the venue, it was at the Continental that Bette Midler garnered her gay following, who remain fiercely loyal to this day.
A lot of gay men tend to love the diva, the over-the-top, the flamboyant, and she, of course, delivers that in spades. You couldn't get anything camper than a Bette Midler concert from the early 70s.
She's got a kind of drag queen-esque quality, I think, so I think there's a big appetite for that, with gay men especially. And for me, yeah, it was thrilling.
I think the reason she had that gay following was she was camp. She was camp as arseholes.
What about royalty?
Oh, I'm mad for royalty. I adore queens. Really? I do.
Because she was so supportive of the gay community have been very supportive back to her. She did break down a lot of taboos.
In the early 1970s, Bette's alter ego, the Divine Miss M, was born. As this concert footage shows, she was a larger-than-life, flamboyantly dressed stage character that strutted out from the underground and into packed theatres across the country.
The man that created the persona of the Divine Miss M was a man by the name of Bill Hennessy. And I remember her walking from the dressing room. He would literally whisper into her ear in the persona so that by the time she walked the 10 or 15 steps to the stage, she was no longer Bette, she was the Divine Miss M.
She just became this thing, this person, the Divine Miss M. A little campy, a little racy.
Oh, you want to see more of my tits?
And Miss M's outrageous and provocative performances took audience interaction to another level.
Actually, I had this dress made especially for the guys in the balcony. How you doing, fellas? Better now, I suppose.
By the mid-1970s, the Divine Miss M was a phenomenon. Bette's debut album had sold millions, and her lavish stage shows were legendary. An outrageous mix of eccentric costumes, over-the-top theatrics, and sheer, unashamed sauciness.
I tickled myself.
She's not afraid, as a woman, to pull faces, allowing herself to be shown as ugly. What it is, it's saying, this is me, take it or leave it. If you don't like it, screw you.
I went to see the show, and I was smitten. I just couldn't believe the outrageousness of it. And a show like that had never been done before.
It's interesting because in her private life, she's a very quiet, quite shy person. She keeps herself to herself, has a very small entourage. But on stage, it's like she dons this other persona and she just erupts and she's electric. She's one of those people that when she's on stage, you cannot take your eyes off her. And there are very few people like that.
Ladies and gentlemen, a rousing hand for the semi-classical harlot, Ladies!
And providing sultry and sisterly support for Bet, as seen in this 1980 concert footage, were her brassy backing singers, who were very much part of the act.
Whenever you were the soloist or the principal singer in something, you'd always have a backing group of singers. So they were her backing group, almost like the Andrews sisters. And then she called them the Harlettes. And they wore outrageous, very low-cut things.
Our ritual was we would come into her room and she'd look at us and she'd go, "You don't have nearly enough makeup on." So we'd stand at her table, smoking cigarettes and drinking and just slapping it on. She wanted them to be tough. She wanted them to be like a cross between the ICATs and the Shangri-Las and the Ronettes.
Well, I was the toots in the middle, so I followed orders, and if she would go, and we'd go, and it was all of that. It was all very cheeky and fabulous.
But some of the material went way beyond cheeky, so Bet put the jokes in the mouths of comedy characters she created. The most notorious was Soph, based on one of Bet's favourite entertainers.
Sophie Tucker was a cabaret performer in the 30s and 40s and probably into the early 50s. She was very glamorous and larger than life and talked about the men in her life. I mean, she was very risque.
From Midler's point of view, she was a sort of dirty old broad who shot from the hip, told it like it was, sang great songs.
Others pet and kiss and hug and don't know what it's all about. Say, when I kiss men, they feel they've had their tonsils taken out. 'Cause I'm the last of the red-hot mamas. I'm getting hotter all the time.
But Bet's contemporary take on Tucker was an altogether raunchier one.
It was the outrageousness, really, that I was so fond of, because she got away with it. I don't think anybody else could. It was the way she delivered it.
I'll never forget it, you know. I was terribly drunk the other night. I woke up, there was an elephant in my bed. I said, "Lord have mercy, I must have been tight last night." "Well," said the elephant.
And I think she was clever because when she did Soph, she was not being Bette Midler, saying these really outrageous things. She was Soph, and so I think that helped. That helped her get away with it in the nicest possible way.
It's literally her excuse to do some of her most vulgar gags known to man.
I will never forget it, you know. My girlfriend, Clementine, at the height of burlesque, was a great, great stripper. But she hated her profession so violently, she used to have to run to confession in between performances. One day, she completely forgot to put her shirt back on, ran into the church, nipples to the wind. A young priest stopped her, said, "Madam, you cannot come into the house of the Lord dressed in that fashion." She said, "Father, I have a divine right." He said, "Well, your left ain't bad either, but you gotta cover your head."
So there I was, may I tell you, with my boyfriend, Ernie. And he said to me, "Soph, when you're dead, I shall write on your tombstone, dead at last." I said, "Ernie, when you're dead, I shall write on your tombstone, stiff at last." Oh, I'll never forget it, I tell you.
How different is your on-stage personality from the real Bette Midler?
Radically different. I'm quite tasteful in my other life.
Do you worry about offending people?
Yes, occasionally, but not on the stage. I think the stage is like you know, they pay their money, they take their choice, you know.
And while Soph was brash and ballsy, one of Bette's most memorable comic creations, Dolores, was decidedly surreal and exquisitely costumed.
I remember seeing Bette Midler at the Palace Theatre in New York in a show which was like a review, and there was a moment where she appeared in a wheelchair dressed as a mermaid, and it's one of the funniest things I've ever seen.
An ingenious use of props further amplified the saucy seaside humour.
Dolores Delago, the Toast of Chicago, in a wheelchair, a mermaid. Who thinks of these things?
Part of what you always see with Bette is that no matter what she is bringing to the stage, there's always a bit of the tropics. There's always a mermaid's tail. There's always a lot of palm trees and fronds. You can take the girl out of Hawaii, but you can't take the Hawaii out of the girl.
But even from the mouth of a mermaid, the material was as vulgar, crude, and shocking as ever.
Don't you think I got pretty nuts the last couple of years with them bitches saying behind my back, the question before us is where's her clitoris?
Bet is the one who delivers the lines. She's the one who's there she's the biggest personality. When she's on stage and she's, small, she fills up the room. Voice, personality. That is a special human.
And gathering together with her harlots, Bet's shows always reached a lavishly produced and uplifting climax, sending her audiences home on a happy high. And after a decade of filling amphitheatres and topping the charts, the next chapter of Bette Midler's astonishing career was about to begin.
I was longing to be a character actress, and I suspect that I'll probably wind up there in very short time.
She had been a huge live success during the 70s, and inevitably Hollywood came calling for Bette Midler. She was such a stage star that they needed to find the right vehicle, and amazingly for Hollywood, they did find the right vehicle.
That movie to me was life-changing. I just knew that she was something special.
During the first decade of her career, Bette Midler had made her name as an outrageously over-the-top cabaret performer.
The material that she did was unbelievably shocking in the 70s. I mean, there hadn't been anything like it.
In 1979, she surprised critics and fans by making the brave move of leaving the stage and launching herself into Hollywood with her first leading role in The Rose.
You sort of think, well, how am I going to top this, Because it was, for me, a real breakthrough. And people said, well, the broad can act, and they had never thought of me like that before.
Well, it's a real calling card to be nominated for an Oscar for one of the first big roles that you do. I think it was a role that she was made for.
It was a script and a character with the widest range. The chance to do all kinds of things, to sing and be funny and chew up all the scenery around, and a chance to sing a kind of music that I wasn't known for singing, and it just seemed to fall into place.
That movie to me was life-changing, and the song, her performance, everything about it made me go, I don't know who she is or what she is because I was young. I just knew that she was something special.
I'm at the phone booth. In the parking lot.
Bette gave a powerfully poignant and moving performance as a vulnerable rock star experiencing the greed and excess of the music industry.
No, I'm all right. I know I'll make it. No, I'll make it. Don't worry about me. I'll be fine. I'll be just fine. Okay.
I was always an actress. I thought I had that in me. I thought that I could feel other people's pain and that I could project it beyond the footlights. I took to singing because it was the only way I could really get work.
So your first film was The Rose, which of
Yes.
course was a chance to put all this pain across.
The log line of the picture was she gave and gave and gave till she couldn't give anymore. And we used to say she gave and gave and gave till nobody gave a shit.
The Rose was a spectacular start to Bette's acting career. But surprisingly, she didn't score again at the box office until 1986, when she appeared in Disney's first R-rated comedy film. Down and Out in Beverly Hills told the story of a family who invite a homeless man to stay at their mansion.
This is the woman who did The Rose, is now going to do Down and Out in Beverly Hills. The two aren't linked in any way, shape or form. It's not the same Bette Midler, but it's such a funny performance, and I think that's the Bette Midler that we see in Down and Out in Beverly Hills that we then see going on in movies.
Barbara, come on, you're overreacting to this a little bit, don't you think?
know a thing about this.
Working as part of an ensemble cast, Bette brought a frenetic and frenzied charm to the part of affluent housewife Barbara.
And they murder us in our beds. Is that what you want? Another
Barbara,
Manson murder?
Matisse loves him. Look.
That should be a clue right there. Matisse loves no one.
Look for yourself.
Stay. Walk. Okay. Good boy. Good boy.
He's gonna give that dog fleas.
I think in this movie you see how brilliant she is at playing really wealthy women. And I know it sounds like it should be easy, but actually she just made a thing of it. It became one of her great traits.
Following the film's success, Bette was awarded the ultimate movie industry honour.
She gave a performance that is both funny touching, moving, affecting, and outright hilarious at times. It showed the range of her acting, but also the fact that Hollywood had struck on someone who could do a lot of different things.
In June 1986, she teamed up with Danny DeVito for the screwball comedy Ruthless People. Rumour had it that Madonna was up for the role, but Disney eventually signed up Bette, who brought her well-established skills of creating loud and abrasive caricatures to the big screen.
You fuck with the wrong person! My husband does business with the mafia. When they track you down, you, your entire family, everyone you ever knew will all get chainsaw enemas. And that's not all. Oh my God. I've been abducted by Huey and Dewey.
Hilarious, because she plays this vile harridan of a woman who gets kidnapped, and her husband, who's a fabulously wealthy businessman, refuses to pay the ransom.
And it's a great premise. It's very, very funny. And she sends herself up.
I didn't know I was going to be that overweight. I didn't know I was going to be that hideous, you know. Fortunately, it's funny. And when it's funny, all considerations of how you look, I think, should be secondary or non-existent.
The thing is, I think with Bette Midler, when you realise she can do anything, when she can put the drama and the comedy together, and the way that she does, she plays those heartfelt moments of I've been kidnapped, and that realisation of my husband really doesn't want me. But the comedy side of it, the two transcend so beautifully together. And again, there are very few actors and actresses that I think can do that. You know, you do feel for her in places, but you're also laughing out loud at her in the other gaps.
He didn't pay. He didn't pay? So now what?
So now, we're dropping our price again to $10,000.
Do I understand this correctly? I'm being marked down?
The scenes where she phones him to talk about the ransom are some of the funniest she's ever committed to film, because she lets rip in the way that she does on stage. She's somebody who is such a life force, she's such a force of nature, that she can invest those scenes with real passion, but also essentially with credibility.
Now have you got all the money? $2.2 million in unmarked, non-sequential bills? You miserable scum-sucking pig! Oh, honey, I'm so sorry. They made me say that.
Yeah, I got all the money.
And it's all there in the briefcase? You scumbag! You lowlife motherfucker! Oh, dear. They made me say that, too.
It's in the case, yeah.
Hello.
Disney knew they were onto a good thing with Bette's run of success, and in 1987 they made an extra effort to keep hold of her.
Today is a very special day for all of us because we're here to finalize an unprecedented partnership between Bette Midler and Touchstone Pictures, which will make her the only woman in Hollywood holding an exclusive long-term studio contract.
Bette's contract also gave her the opportunity to develop ideas with her own production company, and in 1988 she became producer for her next project, which brought together her acting and singing talents to create one of the most celebrated movies of her career.
When you think of one of the great films she's made, and she's made many, many good films, Beaches is the most fantastic.
Everything about that movie worked. And I don't even know if it really made money in the box office. So much so it wasn't really a hit, but so much more afterwards in the videotapes and the DVDs and just the cult following. I love it.
Beaches has continued to gain fans over the last 30 years. Although the film is best remembered for its heartbreaking ending, Bette displayed her considerable comedy skills in some lighter moments, playing the self-centered performer CeCe Bloom.
This is quite an apartment.
Oh, do you like it? I'm so glad. Naturally, of course, you know we're paying through the nose for it, but really I think it's worth every single penny. We're leasing, but we have an option to buy. It's so close to the theater and the stores, and remember when we said we wouldn't be caught dead about 14th Street? I couldn't bear that downtown squalor one more second. But enough about me, let's talk about you. What do you think of me?
It stood the test of time. I mean, it is still one of those films that people go back to and go back to. You know, people watch that film hundreds of times and still will cry at the end. And I defy anybody to watch that movie and not have a tear at the end. It is just heartbreaking every single watch.
She was stellar. And Wind Beneath My Wings is still making her millions today. Every wedding, you're gonna hear it. Sometimes funerals, even a bat mitzvah.
The standout soundtrack song boosted Bette's music career, winning the Grammy Record of the Year for 1989. But in the 90s, she had a dramatic change of image and audience.
I first became really aware of her when I saw Hocus Pocus. I was 6 years old. I saw it 12 times in cinemas. I was obsessed. I was completely obsessed by her. I loved that film because there's something I think so thrilling as a kid in seeing villainous adults and adults mistreating children. I think there's something really exciting about that, so I love those witches. And I just thought she was amazing in it. Her comic timing in that film is just flawless.
You know, I always wanted a child, and now I think I'll have one. Toast!
Hocus Pocus wasn't a particular critical success at the time, but since then Bette Midler has said it's her favourite film.
At the time, it really bombed commercially and critically. It failed. But subsequently, it's become a cult hit. There's a wonderful scene where she and the other two witches storms the stage, takes over, sings a mesmerising version, a bewitching version even, of I Put a Spell on You, and totally steals the show. She's got an extraordinary makeup and weird teeth and bizarre hair, but it's still Bette Midler delivering the sort of bravura performance we've come to know and love from her.
I do a Hocus Pocus viewing party every year, and everyone knows all the lines. I think it's a combination of the performances. It's really well written. It's tongue-in-cheek, but it's not like winking at the camera. It's played quite straight, considering it's about 3 witches who are stealing the souls of children. And it's just an amazing female-led comedy, and she's the heart of it.
For more than 20 years, Hocus Pocus has remained one of the most popular Halloween films, continuing to make millions through DVD sales. But Bette's biggest blockbuster came in 1996.
Made $100 million. $100 million for First Wives Club.
Telling the story of 3 divorced women seeking revenge on their shallow ex-husbands, Bette was in good company.
You've got Diane Keaton, you've got Goldie Hawn. It's a brilliant, brilliant movie. But Bette is always the punch. That's what she's there for.
That's it. No, what? You'll never understand.
Bette's blunt and outspoken performance as Brenda stole many of the movie's most memorable scenes.
You are full of shit. What? So, okay, alimony sucks. Okay, you didn't get to play a policewoman in a Wonder Bra. But look at you. You grew up gorgeous, and thanks to Cher's pioneering efforts, you still haven't hit puberty. And once upon a time, you were a terrific actress. You've even got an Oscar to prove it. You spent your whole life with people sucking up to you. I'm sure Annie will agree with me when I say your perception of life is somewhat altered.
I think everyone could somehow relate to it that had ever been dumped in their life, and I think that's why it became a phenomenon.
Quite a dark beginning, but somehow they make the whole thing into this sort of riotous comedy.
Bette Midler is supposedly the housewife character in this who's struggling for money, which is slightly against type, considering the kind of role she normally played.
I'm a mere laborer, okay?
You're a liar and a fraud.
I have no money. I'm not rich.
Really?
No.
Why don't you look in your purse?
Bette's character may have dressed dowdily, but the script was as sharp, smart, and sassy as ever.
Oh, God, make it go away. Shelley, look at you. My, the bulimia certainly has paid off.
Don't start.
What's the matter, Morty? Can't you buy her a whole dress?
The iconic final scene in the white suits singing You Don't Own Me from the First Wives Club. Every drag show we talk about, oh guys, this tour, that's the closing number we're doing. And we never do it. I think we're afraid just not to do it right.
She's just such a moment of sort of liberation and the fact that these 3 women are there for each other.
I don't tell you what to do, so just let me do
It's what Bet's films have, I think, which is fantastic female protagonists, huge heart, great comedy shtick, and fantastic song.
The studio wouldn't make a sequel. The studio would not make a sequel, which is really weird because all three actresses wanted to go and do another one. They thought there was so much more to explore, and the studio said no. Wouldn't happen now, would it? There'd be about 10 of them.
Bet's Hollywood career gave her a much larger audience, and in the new millennium, this increased fan base needed bigger venues.
Bet will constantly sell out. That says something.
As the new millennium dawned, Bette Midler was a global superstar thanks to high-profile movie and music careers. But the time had come for a brand new challenge. Television.
She was very nice to me because she knew I was really nervous. She saw I was sweating because it was 1 LA and 2 Bette Midler. So she got me this beautiful handkerchief. She gave it to me and I sat there the whole thing sort of dabbing myself. And she was saying, "You're so nervous. Why are you so nervous? Relax." As if, you know, it's every day you sit there with Bette Midler. And as I got up to go, I sort of held on to the handkerchief. She went, "Oh, no, you don't. That's my mother's." And she grabbed it out of my hand. I thought, okay.
Her highly anticipated sitcom, Bette, first aired in the United States in October 2000. Focusing on the everyday struggles of her fictional life, Bette's TV world included her on-screen husband, daughter, manager, and James Dreyfus taking the role of her pianist, Oscar.
Usually, a sort of megastar would come in and go, "Hi, Bette, how you doing?" "Oh, I'm good. You want to sing a song?" "Yeah." She would do one of her numbers and I'd play the piano.
Ah, my shining star, don't you go away.
The show followed the familiar sitcom format, but Bette's Hollywood clout resulted in some astonishing guest stars, such as Dolly Parton, turning in a charming performance.
So many have tried to find a love like yours and mine. Whoa, whoa.
Mother, I'm on the phone. I don't know, she's got some friend going.
She wasn't intimidating at all on set whilst we were working or in rehearsals. You know, she knew what she found funny and she would stick with it. Her humour is all about being self-deprecating and laughing at herself. So her decision to poke fun at the work that she's done, I thought was actually really brave and actually really endearing that she can actually joke about it.
Bette hilariously sent up the perceived image of herself, gamely being the butt of many of the jokes.
How did I get this far? I have no talent.
Relax. You're a pro. You've been doing this for 30 years.
30 years?
The one thing she was most serious about was her singing. So when we were doing, in each episode, one of her famous songs, she would be very serious about doing that. So we had to try and get the piano right, and you were actually there in the room participating in it. However, I know I was faking the piano, but yeah, so it was very special. I mean, and who wouldn't want to experience that?
Only the ones who believe ever see.
Her British pianist may have been miming, but Bette's remarkable and versatile vocal talent was often dazzlingly on display.
Turn me around in your arms, and in this dream we share, let us not miss one kiss.
Although Bette won a People's Choice Award for her performance, the sitcom ended after just one series.
Timing is very key when it comes to TV. Timing's crucial. And if it wasn't the time, it wasn't the time. But it hasn't hurt her career. She didn't need it. Maybe TV was not her medium. Then, it could be now.
In recent years, we've witnessed Bette's thrilling return to what she does best, live entertainment. In 2007, the divine Miss M made an eagerly anticipated announcement.
There have been rumors flying around for months and months. I am indeed coming to the Coliseum here at Caesar's Palace to headline, and I'm really excited.
I think Bette works so well with Las Vegas audiences because what she presents on stage is over the top and beautiful and raucous and bawdy and funny and yet loving. It's never mean.
Vegas has a sort of vulgarity to it. And in her act, she is trying to be that at certain points. And the Vegas audience wants that.
Girls.
The Coliseum seats over 4,000 people, but Bette's towering stage presence ensured she was still able to connect with her fans in her own unique way.
I'm exhausted. Girls, wheel me down the front. I have to say hello to my peeps down front. My high rollers, you know. Both of them.
Look at that pair of smug motherfuckers. Honest to God.
All right, where are the Jews? My tribe. Where's my tribe? Oh, I think they're over there. I overheard someone complaining they were sitting in a draft.
Bet will constantly sell out. That says something. I know it says a lot of old people are there like myself, but it says something when you can constantly sell out a tour. And she performs live, so it's a lot on her. A lot of people don't. I won't drop any names, but a lot of people don't.
Bette's residency ran for an astonishing 180 performances and was an extravagantly costumed production featuring self-deprecating references to characters she'd created decades before.
I made up a kind of an old wise ass. I called her Soph. She'd been everywhere and she'd seen everything and done everything. And I remember so clearly when I made her up. I was about 30 and I figured, well, she's probably 60.
In 2009, Bette found time to bring her talents to the Las Vegas of the North, performing for the Queen at the Royal Variety Performance in Blackpool.
I have to say, tonight is a dream come true for me. But I feel very, very well prepared because I have been singing for queens my entire life.
2017 saw a triumphant return to Broadway in a Tony Award-winning performance.
To have seen Bette Midler in Hello, Dolly on Broadway was one of the greatest things, and I will always treasure it because it was so, so special.
And there was a standing ovation when she came on, and then almost every time she sang, there was a standing ovation. This is in the middle of a musical when they're trying to tell a story, but every time she speaks, people are like, she's just, yeah, she's so iconic and amazing.
Bette's revival of Hello, Dolly broke box office records, taking a staggering $9 million on the day of release.
I think it's fantastic for her. I think going back to Broadway is a great way to get back in touch with why you do this thing that you do.
A pretty remarkable amount of energy required to be going out night after night in your 70s and nailing it like that.
During her 10-month run as Dolly Levi, a clearly overwhelmed Bette Midler celebrated her 72nd birthday.
50 years of laughs and tears to everybody who has been so kind and so generous to me, who gave me this spectacular life all these years. I say thank you from the bottom of my heart. Thank you.
Millions of people have poured to the theatre, not to see Hello, Dolly, not to see anybody else, but to see Bette Midler.
What else are you going to spring on me?
They don't make them like Bette Midler anymore. She's got funny bones.
She sort of made it all on her own terms, and that's ballsy, much to be admired.
Most people are copies of somebody. She was one of a kind.
Do you think you'll make another movie?
Gee, I don't know. Janet, you say it like I'm dead.
No, you're not.
She has a charisma that you can't teach and you can't buy. That's why there's only one Bette Midler.
I don't think she's going to retire. She sounds as great now that she ever has. So why would she stop?
Right.